Man, y'all get on in here because we got plenty to do, and there will be developing stories as we roll through the afternoon. And let me just tee all that up. First, we're going to start as we tend to do when the weather is inclement. We'll start with some weather today. We've now been put in a category 2 out of 5 for potential severe weather this evening. It largely will come after the show. Well, for some of you in the western counties, you may see it as early as 5 o'clock. Maybe even earlier, closer to Mississippi. Classic sort of system coming through, kind of like what we had, what was that, Saturday night? And so just rounds of big storms for the next few days. So for tonight, the timeline I'll just aim it in central Birmingham, up and down 65, somewhere around 5:30, 6 o'clock, they begin. Then they roll through this here this evening. What's interesting is on some of the computer maps, they don't lose strength as the day goes on, and that's usually the case. It's just a lot of instability. So not a great tornado threat, but still an outside chance of strong winds, quick downburst, and a little bit of hail could be involved in these tonight too. So as they update the forecast this afternoon, forecasters tend to give us some fresh stuff around 4 o'clock. We'll be, of course, giving you the updates, and eventually, I guess, toward the end of the show, tracking it on the radar. We're just loaded with news today, and most of it centered around a lot of the politics of gas and gas prices and the price of a barrel of oil in the Strait of Hormuz. A lot of, in fact, there's a news conference this afternoon, I believe, at about 4:30 from down at Mar-a-Lago, where Trump will be talking to the nation live. And a lot of stuff has happened on that front today. But before I get too deeply into that, because I've been watching it all day to keep up, AJ, how'd your son's birthday party go? I have to know. How did the throwdown go on Saturday?
Man, look, it was awesome. It pulled off. We were a little worried about the rain, and we were thinking about, we may have to kind of like push it to a whole nother weekend if it was going to be better weather. And then I was like, you know what? Hey, it is what it is. It's springtime. We have no idea if it's going to be sunny or not. But luckily, everything kind of went off without a hitch. The weather held off, and then as soon as everything was done, that's when the rain kind of came through. So it worked out really good. My son was happy. He turned 5. He enjoyed himself. We did a little painting and
nice.
coloring, and he did good. Some of his friends from his daycare came through. Also, some neighborhood kids just like randomly just came up and was like, "Hey, can we come to
come up for the free stuff?
Yeah, can we come to his birthday party?" And I was like, sure. I can't be mean, to the kids.
You gotta, that's who he lives around. You got to give him the free cookies and whatever, drinks,
right?
Whatever. Yeah.
Right. So it was a good time.
Well,
he
just
definitely enjoyed himself. So shout out to Will. He actually made some food for
did he?
the party. Yeah, he did.
Good for him, man. He's a good man.
So shout out to Will and the crew at Chuck Father. So yes, it was great. Thanks for asking.
AJ has his own personal friend caterer for his kid's birthday party. That's huge.
I'm saying, like, I try to utilize people that I know. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you mean. All right, so let me dig into the economic stuff, because that's really been the headline that is had a lot of people's attention today. Let me see if I can walk through. I'll do it chronologically because there's bigger news in this story at the end. If you'll hang around for the Paul Harvey version, and I'll tell you the rest of the story. So last night, I tend to stay away from watching too much news on the weekend. I had a pretty busy weekend, but I started digging in last evening a little bit, see what had been going on. And the oil markets, which of course trade internationally, there's sort of two oil prices. One is the West Texas price, and that's sort of the oil that's, some people call it the WTI, West Texas Index. That's the oil from over in that's produced here in America. Then the larger crude price for the world in the international markets, things that are shipped over the ocean, it's called the Brent crude index. And those two can be a little bit off. Brent's usually a little bit higher. It's more involving world affairs, but both kind of follow each other. And then by extension, the stock market has been panicky and following that. I guess taking the lead from the people that are studying the situation in the Middle East and anticipating oil flow, which affects everything, which affects the stock market. So I've watched those prices jump around. Last night, of course, yesterday at some point, the crude price crossed $100 a barrel. And that set off a few alarm bells. People started paying attention. And at one point last evening, the last time I checked it before I went to sleep, it was at $118. Now that's after last week when it was much below that here in the United States. I think we were down below $70 a barrel at one point. Now it's starting to bring our gas prices down. So we had this artificial spike. And I say artificial because 100% this is all about the Strait of Hormuz. And we've been talking about this since the war broke out. It's in it, and it makes a bigger point. And I wish people would pay attention to it. And I'll try to walk you through how big a point this is that we're actually taking the Iranians out. Believe it or not, this is good news. I'm going to give you the good news here in a minute. So the price goes crazy, and the stock market futures went down 1,000 points at one point early this morning. So it looked to be a dramatic opening, just a crazy opening. And all of it has to do with whether or not ships will go around that bend called the Strait of Hormuz and either get out of the Persian Gulf, largely out because that's oil being exported. Then, of course, the empty ships have to get back in there. So it's 5%, 20% of the world's oil, 1/5 of the world's oil, half of China's oil. And as you know, our globalist stock market is heavily tied to what's happening in China as well. So the whole world's connected. And you could see it in these numbers. And so it looked like it was going to be one of those days. Then suddenly oil just dropped. I mean, it was like somebody turned a switch. If you look at the graphs, it started going straight back down. And it held off for a while, but now as of coming to air, and for the stock market trading, we've got another hour or so. It had gotten back below $100 a barrel for the first time since last Friday. Let me see where it is right now. I'll see if I can pull the energy models back up. Yeah, we're still below 100, $94 on WTI, 99 on the Brent. And I'm not trying to turn this into a financial show, but I'm just trying to connect some dots for you. What caused that drop and what started changing, Trump had already offered to offer an insurance plan to the companies that are shipping. Some of the private large international insurers like Lloyd's of London have been cutting off shipping. They were interjecting themselves in this by denying the ship's coverage. And so the ships all stopped moving. It wasn't anything directly that Iran was doing, or a lot of us believe it, or even capable of doing. But the threat is there. An errant missile, a weird drone blowing up. You hit a oil tanker and the whole Gulf stops moving. And so there is a risk. There's no doubt about it, but it's nothing the Iranians are capable of doing. They've lost almost their entire Navy. So it's a business decision. And then we started getting word that ships were moving through the strait. A ship carrying corn, made it through the strait with no problems. The United States military is giving cover, and in some cases is about to start giving escorts. We're moving more and more assets to the region. And then we got this word that the ships were turning off their transponders and going through the strait and then turning them back on. So there was more traffic than the analysts were being able to see on their computer screens. Some of you have seen these ship trackers. The news networks use them every day. And they'll put them up and you see little triangles where all the ships are and which way they're pointed. And you saw just this logjam on each side of the strait. And then it turns out they were actually going through. And it was starting to change the equation because they found a strategy to not make themselves so visible on a detector. In other words, somebody from a distance could track the positioning of the ship and then launch something at the ship from away from the strait and maybe affect that ship. But they ghosted. When the markets picked up on that, the rumor mill hit the markets, and then the price of oil started dropping dramatically, and then the stock market started coming back. And at some point, a little while ago, I don't know where it's going to wind up today, but the NASDAQ had gone into positive territory. And at this point, with about 45 minutes left to close the Dow, it is only down 335. That's not bad considering the volatility of the situation and what all's going on. And it's the typical sort of reaction of people that are panicky and uncertainty. The markets hate uncertainty. War is always going to be uncertain. And until things get a little more firmed up, these people are quickly ready to run for the tall grass, and they started doing that this weekend. Now, this is, in some ways, this is good news. And I'm not trying to put a spin on it. I'm just saying that there's a point in this. One, just like when the tariffs were announced on April the 2nd of last year, and the Panicans miscalculated over what the long game was. They all panicked over the short game of hitting these other countries with tariffs. And the market dropped, I think it was nearly 20%. People really lost their shirts by getting panicky. If they'd have held on, they would have gained. But some institutional investors and even private citizens that get emotional about their money started running for the hills, and it was a mistake. It's an almost identical lesson here because we know what the driver is, and we see an end game in place, and there's logic to the long-term strategy here that's eternal, and that's this. And I was thinking about this today, listening to some other coverage as people are watching these numbers go up and down all day today. This shows you how sensitive the strait is. The whole world is paying attention to this passage. But what Trump and the Israelis and now the Qataris and UAE and the French even sent an aircraft carrier today, the whole world is bringing pressure to bear to get this Iranian regime to surrender so there can be peace. And what that's going to do in the long term is remove this very threat that we're living with right now. The Iranians have always had this threat. They've used this threat. They've used their proxies to try to blackmail the world and let some moron call here today and say, we don't have any interest in Iran. Shut up. You buy gas. Yeah, you do. Even if it's just economic. There are moral reasons here. There are historical violence against our people all over the world. But if nothing, this economic issue of their ability, because of their geography and the oil that flows through that region, to blackmail the world over this 33-mile strip of water has been taken away. Because if you take the blackmailers away, the Strait of Hormuz could be freed for decades until some other thug takes over and decides to hold the world hostage to the strait. So the politics of oil, the leveraging that happens around the world. There's even one British analyst I've been watching of late that is really going after her own country for using Lloyd's of London, for example, to blackmail the world and create crisis for profit. And they tried to play that card here, and Trump outfoxed them with this idea that the United States would guarantee the shipments. So it's difficult right now to watch, as any good thing is. Any improvement often requires a destruction phase before you can do the renovation. And on the world stage, we're doing just that right now. The price we're paying right now, sadly, 7 of our soldiers lost. The 7th one confirmed this morning. Temporary spike in oil prices, which will soon come back down as soon as more of these ships go through. They're coming right back down because they artificially went up over something that wasn't fundamental to energy right now. It's just a news headline and guesswork. And when all that's clear, the oil markets are more competitive. And then you add, we've now taken Iranian oil, despite the fact that those big oil tankers were bombed this weekend. That was kind of the beginning of it too. The imagery of what looked like a nuclear mushroom cloud over Tehran this weekend, it was horrifying looking. The Israelis and the United States hit 30 of their big oil storage facilities. That takes away their ability to fight. That's their fuel, just like us. There's a idea that we may actually go after their one refinery, which sits on an island. That sort of puts more economic pressure on them. But the imagery of oil burning and raining back down on Tehran scared the oil markets this morning, and then no news on the strait all weekend. That's what sent the price into orbit, actually. So I've been watching it with fascination, but with a whole lot of confidence, because I try to look at, as best I can, what are the long-term implications of anything our government does, no matter who the president is. That's why during the Obama administration, you could see the foolishness, the sheer foolishness of these people engaging with the Iranians, thinking that they were honorable people, that the mullahs were not the Iranians themselves, but their government was honorable enough to abide by any contract. They would never going to abide by any contract. It's beyond the beliefs of their faith system. They're never going to do that. That was a fool's errand, and it only propped them up for more years to make them as strong as they are now. And they're being decimated. Moving them off the chessboard in this region has peace opportunities for the whole region, for cultural tensions, centuries-old tribal tensions, and then the free flow of commerce without a blackmailer and a pirated nation in that strait and all over that region, causing the trouble they cause and have for 47 years, is going to change economics for all of us. And then, of course, I mentioned the Venezuelan oil, which is a different kind of oil, but getting that oil to market, getting our oil to market, all of these things are really essential if we're going to play the long game. I heard somebody say it earlier today, and I'm not trying to steal other people's lines or thoughts. I gather so much news during the news days. Sometimes I forget where I've seen stuff. But it's really fascinating that, most presidents over the last 50 years have known what we need to do with these people. They did not have the courage to do it. All of the presidents, even the ones I liked and disliked, because there are political consequences and huge risks in taking on this regime and getting them out of the way so that common sense, modern, rational people, including the people of Iran, who, don't mistake them, the Persian people, which make up about 65% of that country, and then others, are the most Western people in that region of the world. They're the most pro-American people in that region of the world. They just are. They always have been. They've needed us to come to their rescue. And how bad does it have to get? Just let's take our hats off for a minute. Let's put ourselves on the ground in Tehran the last 20 years, 50 years. How bad does it have to get when you're begging a superpower to bomb the country and indeed bomb the city that you're living in? You're so miserable, and you've seen 30,000 of your own citizens murdered in the streets by the regime that has their boot on your neck, and you're begging for a superpower to come bomb your city to get them out. Lebanon is going through something like that right now too. I believe this move alone is going to free Lebanon. There's even hope for Yemen in all this, and of course Iran, and by extension Iraq, because Iraq was abducted by Iran after we bailed out. It's amazing. It's really, if you can think, some people can't think past that headline for a day or whatever's in the news right now. They just can't think more than a week down the road. And we've got time. Time's on our side. We're in control of the whole situation. It's a difficult job. So is getting termites out of a house, but you got to do it. And when you're done, the house is stronger and everybody's happier. But it takes somebody with the stones to do the hard stuff, to do the risky stuff, to not worry about personal politics or popularity. But then there's polling today, and I'll get to that here in just a minute, that actually supports if the Trump administration is going to do this in a limited fashion. The president right now enjoys majority support for this action. We'll talk about that in a minute. We got numbers. We got numbers here in Alabama. I got other headlines. We got so much to get into today. Your phone calls, breaking news. And again, the president in about 2 hours speaking, we believe, on this whole issue, and it may give some relief to the markets as well. 545-9950 is the phone number. Alabama Gold Refinery next up here on the show, AGR. Let me see where, I have to get my little fancy ticker out. Let me see where gold is today. I've been so obsessed with oil. I was watching to see if gold was going to pull back too in the midst of all this stuff. And today, if you ran over to AGR, gold is still holding at 51.33. It's been over 5,000 for a little while now. So y'all go see Steve and get to know him. One, you'll have a resource you can count on if you ever want to do any kind of exchange. He can sell to you. He can buy from you. He'll exchange with you. And they work in all the precious metals, all the commodity metals. It's Alabama Gold Refinery in Homewood. Safe location across from the Regions Bank. Security in place. Central location. Wealth of knowledge. Fair pricing. This is where you need to go to do your precious metal stuff. It's AlabamaGoldRefinery.com. AlabamaGoldRefinery.com. Back here in just a minute. All right, y'all. 227 Leland Live Talk 99.5. Danny Knowles is with the Knowles Group. I'm sure he's having to do some hand holding today with some of his clients, and that's what you're there for. If you're the person in charge of placing financial assets on days when things get turbulent, I'm sure you've got to spend some time reassuring your clients, look, we're on track. We know what we're doing. We've seen this before. And isn't that nice to know you've got an expert looking out for you if your nest egg is all tied up in this stuff? Because markets are going to go up and down. World events are going to happen to affect that. And it's happening again. And Danny Knowles has everything under control for his clients. I get such good feedback about my old friend about how he just, in a very straightforward way, tells people exactly what they need to know in a moment and what they need to know going forward. And that's why you have financial advisors and good ones like my man Danny. Y'all listen out for their show on the weekends, Understanding Money. I just got an invite to do our show at his new office. They're changing their office location. Their firm is growing, as would expect. And I think, AJ, I think they got some fancy studio set up for their radio show. So I'm going to go over there at the end of the month. We're going to do our show there. So y'all, I think it'll be open to the public. Y'all come and see us. We'll give you more details on that later. It's the KnowlesGroup.com. Noles, the KnowlesGroup.com. All right, so let me get to this poll about Epic Fury, and then we'll get into some of the other things that are happening around the country right now. Rasmussen just put a poll out showing that Americans generally support Operation Epic Fury, 52-42. It's a 10-point double-digit support, and that's pretty huge considering where the country is right now. We're divided on everything. We just got out of two exhausting wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Some people mistakenly think this is the same kind of mission, and it clearly isn't. But that is the president with the wind at his sails. And again, I've said it last week several times, success begets success in politics and in war. And as our military continues to handle things so professionally and efficiently, this is only going to grow in support. And then before you know it, we're done with our role. It'll be up to the Iranian people to decide their future. But this is a freedom moment for the world that's hard to overstate. It really is. Bottom of the hour, we'll do some of your phone calls when we come back. Leland Live Talk 99.5. All right, y'all, Alabama bass next up here on the show. Maybe your bathtub's not something you're thinking about right now, but if you are starting to age in place, or if you're going through some mobility stuff, or have a family member that is, that becomes a big deal in a hurry. I've seen it in my own family with certain illnesses and even an injury I had a few years ago. I learned to appreciate people that you lose a limb or you go down a leg or lose your mobility, and it's really hard to just get the basic things done in life. Alabama Bath is there to build you something beautiful, not some handicapped looking thing that looks like it belongs in a hospital. Some people fear how it's going to look if you upgrade your bathroom. This is just beautiful floor to ceiling glass, beautifully framed out, but designed for easy entry and to be slip proof, and shelving and handles and things in there to keep yourself stable. Even the way the plumbing works, some of it magnetically attaches. That makes it so easy to just put the wand back up and do your thing. This stuff is functional. It's beautiful. It'll improve your home. And here's my favorite part. You're dealing with a family that's been in business doing this kind of thing for 40 years, and they're just going to treat you right. They're going to do the project in 2 days. Their prices are better than their big corporate competitors, and their product is better. Everything about it is better. So if you're considering a project like this for yourself or someone in your life that needs to be able to keep their freedom a little longer, families have a crisis point where you decide, can mama live alone, or should we move her in with us? And then you start thinking about that. She doesn't want to live with you either. Help her out or help your dad out, and y'all get the facility right. And you can stretch out living in the home that you love where all the memories are. And everybody understands that. I think it's Alabama Bass. Y'all reach out to them. No pressure from these guys either. They're just going to give you a quote and let you make your mind up. It's alabamabass.com, alabamabass.com. All right, so I see Donna over here. Donna, I'm going to come to you in a minute. Let me get a couple of things out. We had this terror incident in New York over the weekend. Sort of freaked me out because I didn't realize where Gracie Mansion was in New York City, but it wasn't too far from where my son lives. And I see a headline that they're evacuating blocks in the Upper East Side from a bomb threat. And we had bomb threats on planes all weekend. These are just shenanigans. None of those proved to be anything serious. And it's amazing to me how the Democrats are playing this moment. But let's talk about the New York situation real quick. They've had a couple of news conferences today. Honestly, the most straightforward I've seen their police department be in a long time. They're calling it for what it is, and they didn't fiddle fart around with it like we did during the Obama years. These two young Muslim guys who came into the city to commit these bomb attacks, they found an easy target in a protest that was going on outside the mayor's office. And they were inspired by ISIS. It's one of those things where you still have some in the media characterize them as self-radicalized. Just hear me clearly. There is no such thing as self-radicalization in the world of Islam. There are groups and propaganda and a whole system for indoctrinating people into committing violence. There's no self to it. It's not like, some people will read the Bible and then jump up, make an interpretation that's incorrect and go act on it. That's not what's happening here. They're fundamentally acting on what they've been trained to do and motivated by groups. They've even traveled internationally into Turkey and other places where it's believed they were given instruction and training. That's not self-radicalization. And they try to break it into components like, were they recruited? All of them are being recruited. It's just so naive. So anyway, but they came out and did the news conferences. They're calling it terrorism. They've been charged with terrorism. Their goal was to have a death toll bigger than the Boston marathon bombing. If you remember, that killed 3 people when those amateurs used those pressure cookers. And the media went on to glamorize those Zarnoff brothers. Remember that? And now these guys built these crude devices. And thank the Lord, they're too stupid to actually make a bomb, and they didn't really go off. And what bravery we saw with those New York Police Department officers. In the shot I saw was a couple of African-American officers down there having to work this thing. Y'all, there's a smoking bomb. It looked like an episode of Batman from the 60s. There's a round thing that's on fire where they lit a fuse, and these 2 guys ran to it and picked it up and put themselves between them and the citizens. And again, thank God it didn't go off. I think those officers would be dead, and they should be given every medal that the city could give them for their bravery in that moment. Now, as for the rally itself, it was some kind of right-wing rally. I don't know who this organizer is. Apparently he has an internet following, and I don't care. I did note that the mayor went out of his way to call it white. he called it a white supremacy rally, and suddenly he was a victim because he's Islamic, and these people don't like Muslims being in their city. And that's, I can understand that, I guess. And he is Muslim, but he didn't say anything about the political beliefs of the people that threw the damn bombs. Both of them can be wrong in some ways, but I'll say this: if that group is a white supremacist group, they didn't bomb anybody. They might have bizarre beliefs that a lot of us would disagree with, but they didn't bring the bombs. Who brought the bombs were these ISIS wannabes, and that's what the city was dealing with this weekend. Now, I point out the long delays at our airports. Some of that is coming with bomb threats. There was a plane, I saw my friend April Marie did a story on this. There was a plane, I think it was from Birmingham to DC this weekend, that everybody on the plane had to be diverted and interviewed. I guess somebody left a bomb threat in the bathroom. So they had to delay all the passengers in that flight and created a little bit of a stir. There was stuff in Houston this weekend. Just like after 9/11, we were jumpy for about 2 months. Everybody was looking for anything. And the threats went up because you've got copycat people. And we still have to be wary like that. I think we're going to see a lot more of that until the issue gets settled, where there may be fake events or real events that don't actually go off, like the two wannabe bombers. And that's the world we're living in. It's a very sort of post 9/11 type atmosphere, where all the world's kind of tense over this. The difference in this situation, I think, and in other situations in the past, if I have to just kind of parse it out, is you've got a huge unification of the Arab world, Muslim countries that are in on going after Iran as well as us. This is not, as some, even the bunch of neocons and people here and other people that hate the neocons that are isolationists, two kind of contrarian groups, disparate groups on the Republican side. Those two trying to make extreme examples of what this is, and all of them are wrong. This is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. And we're not nation building. We're not even going to try to run the country. These people are perfectly capable of finding a new government. But so far, our military has been devastating, and they've been extremely accurate. And we've lost 7 lives, and one's too many. But considering the volume and the scale of this thing, it's one of the largest air deployments in the history of the world. We're lucky that the death toll is not higher. And I think the country and those families will suffer their loss, but there could be a lot more of that if it wasn't for the skill of the United States military. And so where are we in the battles and in the war? Let me get to some of that. The missile deployments from the Iranians way down. They are slowly losing their ability to launch anything medium or short range, especially long range. This weekend, several more of their nuclear facilities, underground bunkers, have been sealed off and bombed and closed. Their energy infrastructure has been hit. They elected a new leader, a new supreme leader. And we went over this last week. People want to know what's the difference between a normal mullah and a supreme leader. The supreme leader has sour cream and extra tomatoes. Just for those of you that don't know how it works. So the thing is, here's the irony. When the Shah was thrown out in 1979, and one of the beefs of the terrorists that took over that country was that they didn't want any more inherited titles, right? They played that as sort of a freedom movement in a populist way to fire up a bunch of young people that were disaffected by a lot of disparities. It's similar to the arguments that go on here with socialists. Anybody that wants to take over another country has to stoke constant animosity and divide people tribally amongst each other so they can cause disunion and then protests and then riots and uprisings. And that's what happened in 1979. But one of the things they seem to be so strongly against were inherited titles, where the Shah, was the Shah, but then his son would become the Shah, like at nobility titles. And we don't like that either here in the United States. What did they just do? The mullahs just elected, whoever does this on the ground, just elected the son of the other mullah. They're doing the exact same thing, because once they get in power, the whole thing changes. So it's been utterly fascinating to watch all this stuff play out. I still remain super optimistic about the whole operation and freedom breaking out over there. It's going to take a few more days. Y'all, it's only been, 9 or 10 days? Are you serious? Calm down. I mean, it's just... People are so short-sighted now, and I blame social media. Our attention spans are short. the ability to sit and get reinforced over something you're reading, and you click on it, and then the internet sends you more of it, and then you think it's all true because you keep seeing it. That's the only thing being discussed. You may be the only one whipped into a frenzy in your own mind. Your cortisol goes up, your stress level goes up. You think it's the end of the world, and you're ready to jump off a building. It's nothing of the sort. We're living in a transitional time where freedom is about to break out in a region we never thought we'd see it in. In fact, let me add one more thing, and then if Donna's still there, we'll grab a call. This weekend, the Cubans took to the streets. They've had blackouts that have lasted for a week. They're running out of food and fresh water. They've got power supply issues. Their government is collapsing. We've sent a delegation down to negotiate with the Cubans so there doesn't have to be a fight, that we could help come in and get that government to step down and manage the situation, manage the chaos for our neighbor to the south. It'd be in everybody's interest. And the people in Cuba, like the people in Iran, are in the streets demanding some relief. And Trump has been predicting Cuba's next to fall. Hallelujah. I never thought I'd see this. Communist, socialist dictators falling by the wayside, Muslim dictators being tossed out. How about that for the guy here in America that the American left wanted to call a king or a Nazi or a fascist? It's not very fascist if you're spreading peace and giving people their freedom back in country after country all over the world, and reasserting our dominance in our own region and protecting our neighbors around us. We're putting the world back right of 50 years of presidential mistakes and bad foreign policy. And we're doing it in swift fashion. I am extremely optimistic that all this stuff eventually works in our favor at the end. It may not be perfect, but this place could get a lot better and a lot freer, and America could return to its rightful place of strength and prosperity. I love it. I love everything about it. Donna is on line 3. Let's go to get our first call today. Donna, what's up?
Hey, Leland. Got a question for you. This may be dumb, but I just been thinking about this all day after watching the maps of the Strait of Hormuz. I know that's back to what you talked about a little bit ago.
Yeah.
Why can't, if we manage to get our foot on the neck of Iran completely, why can't the countries that were so affected by that all pool their money and dredge it out and make it bigger like they did Mobile Bay, and stop it so that doesn't happen, so that our chances of it happening again will be much less?
Yeah. I thank you, Donna. I've seen that being posed online. And I try to describe this on the radio. Y'all can't see our map, right? So picture a pointy point, sort of a peninsula, and then, the strait goes around the tip of that point. The other side of that is Iran. And there are people that believe that there should be a canal cut to make it be even further away from Iran so that they can't be threatened from the Iran side in the strait, right? You got Saudi Arabia on one side, you got Oman, and you've got Saudi Arabia and Oman, and they're no threat. They're making their money off the oil. So people say, why don't we just cut a canal? It's not that simple. A canal that will handle these super tankers would take 10 years to build, maybe more. I am smack in the middle of a book about how the Panama Canal was dug. And even in those days with their technology, it took decades to finish it. And that thing is narrow compared to modern ship standards. Now, granted, they did the Suez Canal very simply because it was sand and it was easy and it was flat. There were huge challenges in Panama that were different, but a canal is super expensive and very difficult to do. And here's a better solution to that. Rather than digging a canal, how about this? Somebody in the class, raise your hand if you agree. Anybody? Why don't we just throw out the terrorists in Iran and let the peaceful people of that country take over, and then there's no threat from the Iranian side of the strait. That ends the problem. You ain't got to dig a ditch. Get rid of the maniacs in the region and allow freedom to reign and commerce to reign, and oil is going to go through there like a fountain. It's going to look like Niagara Falls. But the problem is you don't need to run from these kind of threats as every other administration has done from that hostile terror regime on the other side of the strait. Just get rid of them. Get them out of the way. Give these, which is in progress right now. The Strait of, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, the long-term win here, the short-term win, the short-term loss, as people are panicking about the strait, it's causing oil markets to go through a shock because nobody knows. And that shows how sensitive The ups and downs of the market, which has swung almost 25 points in the last 12 hours, shows you how sensitive that strip of water is, that little strait going through there is. And what somebody last week called it the jugular of the world, and it is. It's a good way to put it. I mean, the whole world runs on the supply that runs through there. So rather than continue to be under this threat as we have since the Iranians took over, they constantly use that choke point as their leverage to the world. Just get them the hell out of the way, and that's over. There is no more threat to the world. We're dealing with the threat now. So we don't have to deal with it for the next 30 or 40 years, especially a nuclear-armed Iran. Can you imagine what that world looks like if they get nuclear weapons and can also choke off the rest of the world's oil supply anytime they want because they're nuclear-powered and they've got huge missile capability? They could choke that straight off as long as they want to. It's counterproductive because they also need to sell oil to the world. But y'all get what I'm saying. The sensitivity of that part of the world, which we've all kind of taken for granted, is now being made, it's being laid bare in front of all of us. We see how much it's needed, which is all the more reason the action that we're taking right now is necessary. We're going to free the world of that threat, of that hostage situation. And that strait's it's never a factor in your life. You'll never drive down the road and look up at a gas station and see it go up by $1 again and go, well, I guess the Iranians closed off the strait. This is their last time to pull that. We can deal with it. I'll pay another $20 to fill my truck up. I can handle it. This thing may settle down in the next 2-3 days. It may settle down in the next 2-3 weeks. Hell, if it takes 2-3 months, I'm down. Let's fix it. Let's fix this issue in the world. And let's free the world of these daggone maniacs. By the way, the junior maniac that some group elected to take the mullah's place, apparently he's been injured now. There are reports all over the internet. In some way, there's been some kind of violent activity that's caused him to be injured. This guy's got to get in a bunker so deep he can't run the country. And by the way, it's worth pointing out too, he wasn't elected. All day long I keep saying the new leader has been chosen. And all I'm thinking is, by whom? It wasn't the people. They're all hiding in their apartments and they've been shot to death by their government. It's the insiders that are left over, the vestiges of this regime are trying to replicate and replace themselves in this moment of chaos for them. And that's there's nothing fair about that to the people in that country, that they just get to put another radical in there that they found in the basement who was hiding and didn't get hit by the first week of bombing. He's the guy that gets to go in by attrition. Crazy times. I got the popcorn out. This is a great day. Back here in just a minute. Leland Live Talk 99.5. Michelson Laser Vision. First up, before I hit this break, Dr. Mark and Dr. Jennifer, ready to help you see better. You can see like me. I'm 2015. I've been this way almost 7 years now. I loved the minute I got off that table after about a 45-minute operation, completely painless. Nothing was weird about it. I stared at a little blinking light. Everything goes dark for a little while. And then boom, they're done with that eye. They do the other and they say, okay, stand up and look out at the world. And I looked out at the world and couldn't believe I was seeing that without my glasses or contacts. And the recovery was easy, and I've been telling people about it ever since, and especially here on the show. If you're in glasses or contacts, don't be stubborn like I was. Don't put it off and keep paying all that money to maintain the glasses and contacts. Just make the investment in yourself. First thing you got to do is find out if you're even eligible, because fairly, some people won't be, sadly. You'll go and get the exam, and they can't do LASIK on your condition. Well, then it's a no-brainer. At least you tried. But if you are eligible, then let them educate you. They're not sales pitching you. They give you an education on the pluses and minuses of surgery. And then you make a decision. I hope you're as happy as I am. It's Michelson Laser Vision. Dr. Mark, the legend, and Dr. Jennifer, his daughter, taking care of people all the time. Downtown UAB Highlands, MichelsonLaserVision.com. All right, y'all, 257, Legal Live, talking to M5 Crocker Moving Services, bringing you the show this hour. CrockerMovingServices.com. Y'all reach out to Eric and his team if you got any kind of moving to do. But it's a little bitty project where you just need some strong backs in a truck for a couple of hours. Or if you're doing a full-fledged move and you need the whole thing, all the trucks, all the guys, all the stuff, it's got to go a long way. They're all kind of scales to moving projects, and Crocker's designed their business. Eric just designed his services so that they can do all the hard part, which is the logistics of scheduling the people to get them over there for your window. And then they move on to other customers. And so they can stack a lot of little business into one day. And it helps all of us not to have to reserve a moving company for an entire day and all that extra stuff that you don't need to pay for. Plus you'll love the way Eric's folks work. He's just a great guy, a patriot, a former Marine that loves his country and worked and served for his country. And that's turns out to be about the best training ever to run a moving company, to get hard work done and do it right and do it on time. And, get these strong guys to follow your lead. That's what they do every day at CrockerMovingServices.com, CrockerMovingServices.com. There's one other Iran issue I wanted to sling in there before we get to the top of the hour. And that is this Iranian women's soccer team. There was some kind of international soccer tournament. Maybe you saw this story last week. And the soccer team refused to sing the national anthem of their country. That is the one that was introduced by the mullahs, swearing allegiance to them and the way their theocracy runs. It was an act of defiance. And then suddenly the tournament was over and they got to go home. And several of them demanded asylum because they were going to be, if they went home, it's certain death. So Trump interceded. Apparently, initially, the Australians said they weren't going to give them asylum. Trump interceded. Now it's getting sorted out. Some of them say they have to go home because they fear for their families. But others are going to be taken care of by either the Australians or us. The United States has offered refuge to these young women who bravely stood up in front of the world and demanded freedom for their countrymen. How about that? Side story, but an important story. Here's the top of the hour, 1819 News. Y'all stay tuned.